Diane, I'm listening to a podcast, Black Lodge Trivia Night. I've never heard so many game aspirations in my life.
All right, welcome back to Black Lodge Trivia Night. This is Art, and we are down a Matt and a Patrick, as you can see. They are heading up NBC Sports ice dancing coverage at the Winter Olympics. I like Italy. I like droning on and on endlessly into a microphone. But alas, I was not asked. So you're going to be stuck here tonight with me doing a little more Hostile solo. Now, coming in hot, as I always am, because we had some things that almost worked out, didn't quite work out, and so I'm excited to get back to this, but I do apologize because I'm going to be coming in a little hot. If you remember the last session had somebody go space crazy from the rescued miner ship. He sabotaged the ship, the Noctua, and let me bring that up. You know, we were sort of like running around the ship, you know, and we've got one unconscious engineer in sickbay. Doc Brown was grievously wounded and is also not doing well, unconscious in sickbay. And yeah, and then there was sort of a chase around the ship. The guy got down to the drives, disabled them. We had a roll for, like, you know, when the drama dice build up, and it was sort of like a computer's gonna go haywire. And so after we spaced, the guy went space crazy and tried to destroy the ship and attack Doc Brown. All of a sudden, whatever sabotage efforts he did had enough success to have the Noctua go nuts, and we've got 30 minutes until life support starts to shut down. So that's where we're going to pick it up. And so let's see. So we've got Adea, Olivia, May, Olivia, and JM were in cargo. They spaced somebody. They spaced the guy. Dell, the android, is trying to help Doc Brown. Tom Hunter, you know, he was not, he thought he was getting his sea legs a little bit, like trying to have his command moment. It didn't go well. And JM basically just, you know, steamrolled him in terms of command and said, yeah, we're spacing this guy. And Tom's like, well, and he's like, yeah, okay, well, you figure it out. We're going to do it. He's kind of got that approach to him. May's like, yeah, hell yeah, fuck this guy. Let's space him. Olivia was probably on board too. You know, May and Olivia had a little bit of a gunfight to subdue the guy. Anyway, so we've got 30 minutes until, until life support shuts down. So I think what we're gonna do is, again, we're gonna do another one of those. If I can remember how to do it, where you sort of like do the whole thing. You know, the story. You do the whole thing in one roll, but I just need to figure out where that is. So I apologize for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a plan. I guess I can sort of do that as I click around. Oops, didn't mean to do that. The basic plan is this. We're going to have to keep Doc Brown alive, and we're going to have to do whatever we can to get the to get the bare minimum for life support up and running. So we're going to do, I don't think it's task resolution, scene resolution. Here's what we're looking to do. Make up a plan. So what do we need to do? I'm going to pop this out for now just so it's not blocking. No, I'll leave it in because this is the whole point. So make up a plan. The first plan is this. Can we jury rig enough of a solution to get, well, can it be repaired? If it can't be repaired, can we at least jury rig a solution to buy more time? So I think, and then that's the basic plan. If not, then maybe we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But the basic idea is making up a plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to have... Dell's going to keep an eye on Doc Brown. Well, let's roll some dice. Did Dell stabilize Doc Brown while everything was going on with the spacing? Maybe she's not 100% out of the woods, but is she stable so that if Dell needs to step away because we're in a looming crisis, can he do that? So 1 through 3, yes. 4 through 6, no. 1 through 3, yes. Okay. So we're going to have Dell on hand to help out. The next question I was going to say, if not, is do they risk it? Do they make the executive decision to say she dies because everybody's going to die if we don't do this, but we don't have to cross that bridge. So okay, so we're going to have Dell on hand. What I'm going to do is so then resolving the scene. To resolve the scene, essentially running a team of players. Okay, decide on the difficulty of the plan. I think shaky. I think quite a few things could go wrong. Here's the thing. Safe, dangerous, though. This is the question. The outcome of the scene is intensely dangerous. But is the moment-to-moment repairing of it safe or dangerous? In my mind, it might be relatively safe. I mean, working on the ship systems is not they're not doing a spacewalk in a suit with a tear in it because it's all or nothing. You know what I mean? Or they're not involved in a gunfight like they were with the space crazy guy in the last session. So in my mind, the plan itself is relatively safe. There's not risk of immediate harm in trying to repair that. So, okay. So now that we've gotten that, we've got shaky but safe. Roll 2d6 to equal or exceed the required roll. Apply +1 for each character that brings a significant skill or successful skill roll. I like doing the skill rolls. I don't want to just give it to them up to 3. So what we're going to say is... What do we got here for stats? Yeah, we're going to have let's have Dell, he's going to be on the computers. Let's, give him a skill roll. He fails. Oh, no, he succeeds because he's got a +3. Okay, so that's a +1. We've got JM. What does Olivia do? Navigator. She's not going to really have much she can offer. May security. What does JM have? He's got pilot. So here's what I'm thinking. Move this out of the way a little. I'm going to put, I got a new look going here. So I can just move this over a little bit. I want to give us... Oh, you know what we're going to do? This is what we're going to do. Okay. I want to give us 2 negatives. A -1 for Tom because he fucking sucks. And he's not a good leader. I'm going to give another negative for Adea. Now, Adea is the engineer. But if you remember from her notes and her info, talks tough but is scared inside. And what we've sort of developed over time is that she is terrified of dying out here in space. And if you remember from her past, there was a lead engineer that was a Nepo hire. A bunch of people got killed because that engineer made mistakes. That decision. So she's terrified of the idea of dying in space and how you die in space. She's going to freak out. I am not going to let her hold it together. We've sort of been building up to this, and it's going to start to break a little bit here. So, there's a 30 minutes until life support systems fail, 30 minutes until life support systems fail, and then, all of a sudden, there's a countdown on a monitor to keep everybody in the loop of how much time they have. And this is just too much. And she loses it. And so she starts to okay, no, I'm good. And luckily, JM, somebody catches her. JM and Olivia have been having some beef. let's have it be May. May, she's a pretty cool under fire. She's got not much that can help here. But she's like, okay, you know, she sees Adea is a little shaky. And she's like, okay, Adea, you know, we're going to get through this. You know, I'm an extra pair of hands. What can I do? Talk me through what you need. And she's trying to keep it, and it's not working. And she sees Adea slipping further and further, and she starts grabbing stuff, and she drops a tool that's necessary. And May is like, okay, all right. And she's trying not to lose it, but she gets a little short. And she's like, okay, Adea, we gotta fucking stop. Just stop right there. Okay, let's take a step back. Why don't you go check in on Doc Brown? And, you know, we'll figure this out. And she's like, you know, and she sort of slightly in a daze makes her way to sick bay to sort of get benched. So they're kind of now short an engineer, but May is pretty quick thinking. And she's like, you know, private channel kind of over to Del, like, hey, Del, you know, I'm going to need a little bit more support. Adea is just fucking lost and she's useless. Get that fucking engineer up from the other ship. Wake him up. I don't care what shape he's in. I don't care if you have to, like, plug up every hole with, you know, bandages and he bleeds to death fixing the ship. You get him the fuck down here. And he's going to do the work. So he's going to go down to engineering, and Del's going to, you know, wherever he goes, but he's going to get him down there and then blah, blah, blah. And so, and it's almost like, let me lock the rotation there. It's almost like, hey, do I need to do this with a gun to your head, or are you going to help us? And this engineer is sort of still a little half out of it, but he's like, yeah, no, man, no, seriously, like, I'm trying to, I'm sorry I couldn't warn you. That guy fucking lost it on our ship. And, yeah, no, I barely survived over there, and whatever you need me to do, I'm all hands. So let's give him an engineering roll. He's going to I'm going to roll off her sheet, but what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give him a -1 because he's sort of half out of it. Okay. So now, let's roll his, you know, he's got a 2d6 plus 2. His intelligence would not be a +1. It would be a 0, but I think he wouldn't get a negative. So, what's the +2 for skill? I could see him having a mechanical of 1. So he rolled a 10 and be probably +1 for his skill, no bonus for his stat, and then a -1 for being groggy. So he would still pass. Okay, so we've got +2 in terms of the skills. We've got a -2 because Tom sucks, and Adea has lost it. So there's other things that they're trying to deal with as they're trying to solve this problem. So that's basically what we're going to do. And now we're going to go for our... So I think it's a straight roll, right? +2 for the skills, -2 because Tom sucks, and Adea freaked out. Woof. Okay, so we got to beat a 10 on 2d6. Close, but they fail. Okay, so the mission is a success or failure. So now what we have to do is we have to roll on the consequence table. The plan was not a success, so we don't get this +2. If the plan was safe, no one got hurt. So we can roll a 1d6 + 6. So it's going to take death, serious injury, or minor injury off the table. So let's do 1d6 + 6, see what we get. Be pretty high, got a 10. Seriously upset or antagonize an NPC. I'm not going to make it be an NPC, I'm going to make it be Adea. Adea, they were not wrong to do what they did, to bench her, almost a locker in sickbay with Doc Brown. Like, just to, like, really, you need to stay out of the way. You're not helping. She's really unhappy about that, But she, let's mark that down. She's going to be pissed about that. Let's see. We'll be upset that she was unceremoniously... How you spell that? Sarah, I forgot part of the... Right there. Ceremoniously benched during life support crisis. Okay. So, man, she's not having a good run here. This has not been a good run for her at all. Okay. So we mark that down. So that's the result of that. But now we have another problem. And that is life support is going to expire. Now here's a question. Is it that they just don't have enough time, or that they genuinely can't do it, even if they were able to buy another hour, another 3 hours? Do they just not have enough? 1 through 3, they could do it if they had more time. 4 through 6, they wouldn't. 6, okay. All right. Okay. Heh. So here's what we're going to do. So everybody is going to convene in the bridge, you know, like maybe, yeah. So maybe during the repair, maybe this is part of what Adea does. And this is what gets her benched. It might have been possible to repair the life support. Maybe they would have needed more time, but it would have been possible. And maybe they could have figured out a way to buy that time. Adea fucked up. Adea, as part of her panic, made things worse. Broke something that they're not going to be able to replace as they currently are. So once they realize that's the case, they're like, oh, fuck. Okay. So they, you know, like they can make everything else in the half hour that they have. They make everything else as good as it can be. It doesn't really matter at this point. But they watch the timer expire, and you know, life support fails. And it's one of those things, you know. Tom, you know, he's not holding it together, but JM's like, hey, everybody, let's convene in the bridge. Let's meet up there. So they do. Doc Brown's not there, but everybody else is. And they've sort of locked the engineer. They've sort of said, hey, look, man, it's not personal. We appreciate what you've been trying to do to help us, but we're just going to, you know, we need to convene, and we're just going to put you here for a little bit where, again, it's not personal. And they sort of maybe lock him in a stateroom or something, you know, so it's not like he's chained to a pole. They don't mind if he's comfortable, but they just need him to be secured so they can talk without having to think about him. And Tom is like, okay, I mean, what are we doing? Okay, all right, so we need to come up with a plan. And JM's like, all right. Adea, like, you know, nobody blames you, and she's sort of getting very upset, and she's, you know, wiping some tears, resentful, but also understanding gravity of what might have just happened, and that she may be bringing to bear the very thing that she's always been terrified of. She does understand on some, I mean, not that anybody would blame her, but it was her doing. And JM, again, continues to be the cool under fire. May's pretty cool under fire. Del is cool under fire because he's an android. And why would you program into an android's DNA hysterics? So Tom's a bit of a mess. Olivia, what's her deal? She and JM have beefed. Blaming for a past event. I thought I wrote this down somewhere. Oh no, JM blames her for a past event. And it's because she sort of took... Did I not write this down? I jotted it down in my notebook, but I guess I didn't type it in. Anyway, he was cultivating an opportunity back in flight school or whatever. She poached it or something like that. So that's why he resents her. I think that's what I did. Anyway, so maybe she's like, oh, JM again. All right. Like, I don't know what the problem is that we're having, but here he goes. He's going to, be Captain JM when, Tom's right there. But, not that he's doing a great job, but maybe we should defer. That is the chain of command after all, and we should respect it at least a little bit. That's maybe what's going on through her head. And, maybe as part of the thing, like, JM's grabbed 6 shot glasses and a bottle of whiskey on his way up to the bridge. He pours everybody a little bit of a shot. He's like, Del, I don't know if this does anything for you. Del waves him off. And everybody's like, okay, everybody, just take a shot, take a deep breath. And with that, May goes, sort of like, oh, wait, no, somebody's got like gallows humor. Is it Olivia? Comically pessimistic. So maybe she's like, oh, and everybody just take a deep breath and calm down, right? And that gets a smile from a few people. And as they're getting ready to start the discussion, the countdown on one of the displays hits 0. And when you have like a forced air kind of like central air heat, whatever, there's always a little bit of wind blowing. You can hear it. Sometimes you can feel it hitting your hair if you're underneath one of the blowers in your ceiling or however it's, and all of a sudden they're sitting there and they feel that wind stop. And it gets a little bit quieter because that also stops. I don't know if that noise comes through, but like that sort of dies down. And they all kind of look up and they're like, okay. And so Tom's like, okay, so what are we going to do? What's the plan? And Tom and Jam's like, look, all right. A couple things are going to start happening. It's a big ship. There's not many of us on here. We probably have enough oxygen to last before the carbon dioxide starts to build up for a little while. We can run the numbers on that. So in that sense, I think we're gonna have some time. He's like, my concern is it's going to start getting very, very cold. So at some point, we're going to need to deal with that. We're going to have some time. Again, we've got like a decent temperature for now, but we're going to start bleeding off heat. We're not going to be able to replace it, and it's going to start getting very cold. It's almost like in Firefly's Out of Gas. Like, you think we're going to sit here and suffocate painfully. This is like summer. And, the priest is like, yeah. He's like, oh, no, we're going to freeze to death first. And he's like, that's not comforting. So it's kind of like that. So Jam's like, it's going to start getting very cold. Here's what we got to do. We've got enough suits for everybody to, suit up when it starts to get too cold, and we can use the environmental controls in that to stay warm. And maybe there's a way we can, not use air until we need to use it. So I think we can buy ourselves some time. So now the question is, what are we going to do? And everybody sort of looks around. And Olivia starts punching into the computer. And let's roll. Okay, 1, 2, 3 days, 4, 5, 6 hours. Days, okay. So Livy's like, look, how many days out? She's like, we're 3 days out from DSF Westville, the ship that we picked those guys up on. Now, that ship was, sabotaged as well, but, the engineer and the space psycho, they had enough, they had enough life support to hang in there. Now, there were only 2 of them. Maybe they hold up. But whatever it is, we can get to that ship and we can figure that out. So now we're going to do another scene resolution. We're going to come up with a plan. Here's the plan. We're going to go back to the Westville. We're going to dock with the ship. And we're going to do one of 2 things. We're either going to scrap it for parts to get our ship back up and running, or we're going to transfer the crew over there because that life support is going to be more stable, and we'll see if we can continue the mission from the Westville. And with that, Del... Let's see some of Del's info here. Androids have core programming that forbids them from doing harm to humans unless. Always thinking of the company's good at the expense of all else. And so Del is like, may I remind you, though, that the Noctua is property of, I have to remember the, conglomerates. Leyland Okuda. I was about to say Wayland Yutani, but that's not it. Remember that the, Noctua is property of Leyland Okuda. And everybody's like, yeah, no, I get that, man. Like, look, we can set up a beacon. We can do whatever we want. We could even have an autopilot. Could they do that? Have just sort of autopilot? Like, could it make the jumps through autopilot? Maybe that, maybe not. Maybe that'll be the limit of autopilots. Like, you can autopilot around a sector. Like, when that, back at the Hamilton station, when the ship lost its crew and it was just sort of heading toward the space station. But that could have just been, dead stick, pointing it and go. But let's just assume that, you can't autopilot jumps, but you can autopilot once you get into it. So they don't have a solution for that. But they're like, look, we know where the ship is. We can set a beacon. We can do anything we want. Somebody can come get this ship and tow it back. But Del's like, yes, I understand that. But this is, but there's a risk to the property. Salvagers may see it as derelict and up for grabs. And, things like that. And Tom's like, well, I don't know about, and James like, okay, Tom, don't, let the grown-ups talk. And Tom's starting to really resent JM. We're going to do a character scene or something. We're going to do some moment after all of this is sort of resolved where those 2 are going to sit down and be like, oh, in front of the other people, I'd really appreciate it. We'll get that. But, so JM's like, all right. He's like, Del, look, if we're all dead, what difference does it make? And Del's like, well, I think that maybe. And then Del finally says, I don't have the same requirements that you do. And JM looks at him and says, maybe, can you operate in near absolute zero temperatures? The ships, I don't think you appreciate how cold the ship's going to get. And he starts trying to do the math with radiant energy from the engines that still function would generate heat in the back parts of the ship, blah, blah, blah. And so he's sort of putting an android's case together for how logically this could work. And he's like, look, I don't know what to tell you. We, as human beings that will die need to have a plan. So if you want to stay with the ship, stay with the fucking ship, man. Don't stay with the ship. Like, we have stuff to do, you know. And right now, we're not going to be able to do it if we all freeze to death. And so Del sort of like, you know, quiets down and, you know, understands that part of it, you know. And Jam just said, you do what you want to do. And so Del maybe starts running permutations either way. So then Jam turns to Olivia and he's like, look, Olivia, you know, how fast can you get us to that ship? And let's do a navigation roll. Again, we said we're about 3 days out. That was at D4, but let's do a navigation roll. And if she gets really good results, you know, maybe there's a way to cut that down. She's the navigator, right? So that'd be computer. Ooh, okay. So she's not going to have a great roll. And what about James' pilot? He's pretty good as a pilot. Okay, so we're going to have his effective 2 cancel out her effective -1. So she's not able to come up with a plot. She's like, no, look, man, there's... You know, maybe, you know, who knows why, but like, look, you know, like we're not going to be able to shave any time off, you know, maybe some gravitational something is, you know, like that it is what it is. So it's going to take us 3 days. It's like, okay. So they start running the numbers and they're like, I think we can survive 3 days on the air supply. It's going to start getting close. Let's, and the person that could tell them is Doc Brown, and she's incapacitated, right? So she's the one that they actually need for this. And so they're like, Del, look, we need you to run some numbers. You know, calculate the, you know, the cubic space inside this ship and how long it would take for, you know, the carbon dioxide to build up to levels that would get dangerous. And so Del starts to run those numbers. Wow. A roll does not get better than that. He rolled boxcars, so he's got +3, so it's a 15 total. That's an effective 7. So he basically gets the numbers down to the minute. It's like, look, oxygen supplies 1 to 2 run out, 3 to 6 will last. Okay, he's like, you're going to come up short. You know, let's say you've got 2 days, 17 hours worth of oxygen. So you're going to need the suit's oxygen supply. Now with the temperature, again, if we stay in the engine compartments, if you suit up, you know, you can do different things. So I think you're going to be able to survive the temperatures and the oxygen supply. And they're like, okay, great. Olivia, set the course. Let's at least get that going, and we can keep talking while we figure the rest out. So let's, so the basic plan is they're going to head back to the Westville, and they're going to either survive on that one and leave the Noctua for now, or they're going to try and jury-rig a repair, get life support back up and running, and then go from there. And so let's bring this back in. So we've got a plan. Is the plan shaky, solid, or foolproof? I feel like variable-wise, I think you can make the argument that this plan is pretty solid, right? Like they corrected the rotation of the Westville when they rescued the 2 people. So that ship's just sitting there dead. And flying over there is not a challenging thing. They know pretty specifically temperatures and oxygen readouts, so they know what they have to do when. So I'm going to say this plan is solid. Is this plan safe or dangerous? I think you can argue it's dangerous because of temperatures, whatever it might be. I think there is risk. So then we've got a solid plan. They need to beat an 8. Roll 2d6 equal or exceed the required roll. Apply 1 for each significant skill. Who could provide significant skills? Like, I think Dell did, so we'll give you a +1 because Dell was so good. Man, but he rolled a 7 effect. Let's make that a +2. So we'll do a +2 for Dell. I don't think everybody else is bringing, like, if Doc Brown were in the picture, I think she could have skills that would really help out. But let's just give him a +2 for Dell's unbelievable roll. All right. 2d6 +2. Whoa! All right. So they fail. They're not going to get there. Okay, and then let's figure out. And then let's do the consequence roll. Because you do that regardless. 9. Damage to a useful or valuable piece of kit. Okay. Damage to a useful or valuable piece of kit. Somebody's suit is shot up. During the firefight, they realize as they're trying to do all this, one of the suits isn't going to work, and they don't have enough extra. So they have to make a choice. You could argue that maybe Dell doesn't need one, but let's just say for some reason there's enough suits that got damaged during the saboteur incident that they're short. How many are they short by? Three. Okay. So let's say Dell is 1. He's going to try and get by without a suit. Doc Brown is 2. So they have to start figuring out what are they going to do. They're going to put her into hypersleep, I think. They're going to have just wounded. And that's the thing. So, like, in hypersleep, there's a risk. She won't need a suit, but she won't be able to get medical attention. But yeah, they need to park her. And, then the third one. So they're like, okay, so as things start to get rough, like, oh shit, okay, let's hang in as long as possible. They're like, okay, we need emergency measures. Doc Brown, okay, we got her in hyperspace. And so they're looking at the engineer and they're like, look, we're not going to space the guy. He was a victim of the other guy, just like we were. Here's the trick. We need his expertise of the Westville. We can't put him into hypersleep. We need him because he's going to help us. He's an engineer for the other ship. He's going to help us either get that one up and running. We need his expertise, or he's going to help us get the parts we need to coordinate with the Dea to fix the Noctua. So one of us needs to volunteer to go into hypersleep so we have enough suits. And everybody sort of looks around the room. And May is like, I'll do it. I'll volunteer. And JM like sort of nods, and Tom's like, okay, there you go. We got her. We're good. And he's like, yeah, no, that's good, but she has demolitions expertise. So if we're going to need to do something, significant, if we need to blow something, she is we're gonna need her knowledge. And so then Tom's like, well then, if it's not her, like what, Olivia, or like who are you thinking? I mean, we need Adea, Olivia we might need to, pilot us. And he's like, oh, no, I know. And so JM's like, it's you, Tom. You need to go into hypersleep. And now we're going to sort of build out the moment between them. So let's figure out how to do that. All right, hazard combat, random encounters, character interactions. Let's see what this is. 2 characters work together, 2 characters are in opposition. This is what we are. And it's sort of a stressful crew. Oh, you know what? I needed to, I didn't do this before. So the rules, reference, setting, storylines. I think I needed to... drama points. I think we go down to 0 because we rolled, but we're going to put 1 back up for that first scene. And we're going to do another one for this scene. So we're back up to 2. It actually might be possible. If we rolled a 12, we could trigger another freak out moment. But okay, so let's confrontation. This is what we're looking for. In a confrontation between 2 characters where one character is trying to convince the other, make an 8 or plus higher roll. If the convincer has higher social skill, who does? Social is a 5. Tom probably has a better social skill. 5. No, they're both shitty at it. Okay. If the convincer's social is double, no. Convincer, no. Convincer, no. Add liaison in a 1-to-1 situation. Add leader if trying to convince 2 or more characters. It's a 1-to-1. Got a 1. He's not going to have that. Although they are trying to convince the group. He's got a leader of 1. I hope Tom has a crappy leadership because he's not good at it. He's got a 1. Okay, so I think it's just a... I think it's just an 8 or higher of trying to convince him in this confrontation. Okay, so let's do an 8 or higher. So this is JM rolling to try and convince Tom to go into... He doesn't do it. Okay. Just looking over some things, just see if there's anything we need. Let's see the reaction table. See if that helps at all. 6. Argument with another character. Yeah, they have a full-blown explosion here. All right. So yeah. So Tom is like, no, I'm not fucking doing it. And furthermore, I don't appreciate, and then this is where it comes out. I don't appreciate this shit. I don't appreciate that shit. You've been undermining my authority the whole time. And JM's like, well, yeah, only because I have to, because you're so fucking bad at your job. And I don't know how you got it in the first place. I don't know whose cousin you are or whose friend you are, but like, man, like you're gonna get us killed. You are in over your head. You don't know what you're doing. And the rest of the crew is just kind of, the way like you sort of turn your head when like a couple's fighting at the table at like a group dinner. Just sort of like, you know what, we're going to stay out of it. And Tom's like, yeah, so like, I don't know, like May volunteered to do it, let her do it. And JM's like, man, like, I don't understand why this won't get through your head. Like, we might need what she brings to the table. You don't bring anything to the goddamn table. So why don't you just go park yourself on the bench, let us save the day, keep us all alive, and then we can deal with all this when we get done. And you can have me thrown out of the company if you want for insubordination when we get back, but at least we'll be alive. And Tom's like, how dare you? You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. You don't speak to me this way. And JM starts catching May's eye. And May's kind of like... JM finally like, yeah. And in a flash, May draws her service weapon and points it at Tom and says, "You're getting in the fucking hypersleep chamber." And we'll fade to black there. Huh. Yeah, we'll fade to black there, and we'll see what happens next time. Again, this is the thing we do when we can't get the band together, so there will definitely be more, but I don't exactly know when it'll show up on the schedule. But yeah, hopefully this was a lot of fun. Again, the solo sessions are always going to be a little bit shorter, but this was a lot of fun. It's really interesting to see where this goes and how this plays out. Because again, I will say I had one idea of what to do if everything went wrong. Like everything. But I really prefer not bringing anything to the table. As much as I say I'm coming in hot, like I want to come in hot narratively. It's just the system that I wish I could refresh more frequently before I jump in. But anyway, that was this week's session of another Hostile solo chapter. If you're watching this on YouTube, you have found our channel. Like and subscribe if this is your thing. If you prefer audio versions of this kind of stuff, or our discussion podcasts, search for Black Lodge Trivia Night wherever you get your audio, and we should show up. We have a Discord if you want to jump in, talk about RPGs, CRPGs, hopefully get some more games organized within the community. And, man, what else? I think that's kind of it. So hopefully we'll have Matt back soon. Hopefully, potentially, we'll even have Matt and Patrick back at some point in the near future. And we'll get the full rotation spinning up again. So thanks again to everybody who checks this out. We really appreciate it. And hope you're doing well. Take care. Bye-bye. The in-session music was provided by Tabletop RPG Music and composed by Ian Fisher. You can find the Patreon at www.patreon.com/tabletop RPG music. That's all one word.